guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. So the Mexican Grand Prix has been completed, the first of a triple header I believe now, going into a triple header with all these flyaways, Mexico, Brazil, and then is it Jeddah? I might be wrong with that, but either way it's absolutely ridiculous. Once again, Formula 1 proving that we're just all about the money, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world, and they don't really give a shit about the teams, the drivers, any other staff that work in Formula 1. But there we go, that's Formula 1 for you, that's the FIA. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to the triple header. Myself, not particularly. I'd sooner them have a week gap somewhere so the teams can have some rest and be able to repair damage, etc. But there we go, that's just me. So yeah, what could be said for the Mexican Grand Prix? It was okay, wasn't it? It wasn't a stunner, it wasn't a thriller. We had a fantastic lap one, and then from there it really did calm down quite considerably, quite quickly. But yeah, all in all, I think it was an okay race. Not a stunner, but again, we can't be just expecting amazing races every race, can we? I know we have been properly spoilt this year with some exciting races at circuits that are normally boring. But this year we have been treated to some special races. This one wasn't a special race, but it was certainly an interesting lap one. And what ensued afterwards were just pretty much status quo. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points if they have a particularly good race weekend. And I go all the way down to 0 if you have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points though. They're on offer if someone does something extra special. Maybe an Alpha Tauri staying with inside the top 5. Throughout the entire race, maybe, and look out for minus points as well. They do sometimes appear on the Crawl Room if someone does particularly badly, but Parma normally has those guys covered. So we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Max Verstappen. Well, what could be said? His Saturday didn't go well, did it? His Saturday did not go well. P3 is not where Red Bull were expecting to line up this weekend. They were expecting a 1-2 on the grid and winning the race in dominant style. Well, they did the second part, but unfortunately for them, they didn't do the first part. His Q3 run, his first run was scruffy, and then in the second one, he got distracted by Tsunoda off, Perez off. I'm not blaming Tsunoda for that. I'm not blaming Perez for that. That's just how it happens. You know, that's life. Get on with it. So unfortunately, he backed out expecting there to be yellers when there wasn't any. I'd have expected yellers as well, to be fair to him, but there you go, that's as it was. I don't think it was fast enough for pole anyway. I think it had been quick enough for second, which may have put him in a different position, and we could have been talking about different results here, but nonetheless, Max, I was going to give him 9, but then his lap 1 really just absolutely put pay to that bad qualifying session, didn't it? It just put pay to it. He was round the outside, the Mercedes left him room, and then he just sweeped around the outside and was into turn 1 first. I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting a more robust defence from Mercedes, and I was expecting some kind of carnage to happen. I wasn't expecting it necessarily for Max, but I was thinking this is going to kick off between Perez, Bottas, Hamilton and Max. These are all fighting for a Constructors as well as a Drivers' Championship. You've got firm second drivers within both teams. I was expecting something to kick off, and it did, but not in the way I was expecting. So Max fully recovered his poor qualifying performance and fully delivered in the race to not even be a threat. He wasn't even under threat from Hamilton, he was just managing the gap. So well done to him for that, and he has redeemed himself. So it will be 10 points to Max this weekend. I was going to give him 9, but I think that race was thoroughly deserving. He got the job done when he needed to do it, and then maintained the gap. So yeah, well done Max, 10 points. And then we come to Lewis Hamilton, as mentioned, a cracking lap in qualifying, both of the Mercedes ahead of both Red Bulls. Was not expecting that at all. Unfortunately, Valtteri Bottas just pipped Hamilton to pole, of course. And having said that, looking at what happened in turn 1, was it better to be second? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think personally Bottas was yielding to let Hamilton through once he knew that Max had got them all, and then I believe that's what's caused the kerfuffle going into turn 1. But nonetheless, Hamilton, second place. I don't think he was expecting anything better than that anyway. I think he was expecting Max to be P1, him P2, but there he was, P2. A good effort, a really good effort actually, considering the Mercedes wasn't looking that quick. And then in the race, once Max got ahead, he showed the true pace of the Red Bull and disappeared into the distance. But Hamilton did a cracking job to keep Perez behind him. Perez had a few laps, didn't he, where he was attacking, couldn't quite get there. Then there was lap traffic that worked in Hamilton's favour. And then at the end, Perez was right back on him again, but just couldn't get away round him. So I think to finish ahead of a Red Bull, looking at the pace of that Max Verstappen car ahead at the end, I think that was something special. So yeah, it's going to be 10 points to Lewis Hamilton as well. The last couple of races, Lewis has done all he can, but it's just not enough, is it? Unfortunately, the Mercedes not looking particularly quick over race runs. But I think if it can keep a Red Bull behind him, it can stay there. But just overtaking is so impossible. So yeah, the crucial part was the start there. But nonetheless, cracking effort by Hamilton, 10 points. And then we come to Sergio Perez finishing in P3 in Mexico, his home Grand Prix. I was genuinely so chuffed for him. Perez, these last few races, has delivered exactly what Red Bull need. Okay, I think they would have liked him to finish ahead of Hamilton, as I'm sure the Mexican fans would have as well. He couldn't quite do it though, could he? Qualifying P4, got distracted by Tsunoda in qualifying. Again, I don't blame Tsunoda, I don't blame Perez, I just think it was one of those things. And then, yeah, lining up P4, it seemed to have worked out well for him. But after Bottas got turned around at turn 1, he was P3, and that's where he stayed. So, yeah, I don't think you can get any more wrong than that, can you? I don't think he did anything wrong. He didn't do anything particularly right either, did he? He was just really good throughout the weekend. And I think, like I say, as mentioned, he's delivered exactly what Red Bull needed. Now, I was going to award him 8 points, but seeing as though it's his home Grand Prix, and he scored a podium, there's a little bit of bias going on there, and he's getting 9 points. And yeah, as well, to be fair to him, he put Hamilton under pressure. Mercedes, with only one car, had to work out when they were pitting Hamilton in reference to both Red Bulls. So he was there for the tactical game this weekend, Perez, once again, and drove fantastically with it. So yeah, well done, Sergio. 9 points to you. Fantastic effort. And a home Grand Prix podium. Fantastic stuff. And then we come to Pierre Gasly, my personal man of the match, my driver of the day. Unbelievable effort by Pierre Gasly. He was that good, we saw nothing of him. Nothing of him. From the minute that lap 1 ended, we saw nothing of Pierre Gasly. A stunning qualifying effort to be in P5, best of the rest category, firmly in there, only a 10th or so behind Perez as well, so he could have been making some surprises a bit further up as well. Then in the race he avoided the carnage of the first corner with Bottas getting turned around, and then he stayed in P4. And he just stayed there and stayed there and stayed there. No one was looking at him. He was the only other driver to finish on the lead lap as well. So everyone else behind Gasly was lapped, and he did a stunning job. So that is going to be 11 points to Pierre Gasly. He got exactly what he needed for the AlphaTauri team. A solid 12 points on the board. Unbelievable stuff. And yeah, well done to him. So yeah, a bonus point. It's 11 to Pierre Gasly. And then we come to Sha-la-la. It's Sha-la-la. And he Sha-la-la'd his way Salter into P5 and stayed there, didn't he? Let's be honest with him. Yeah, it was a good race by both Ferraris, actually. I think they drove really well. They drove to the maximum that that car could. In most normal circumstances, I do believe they would have finished ahead of Pierre Gasly. But one, for the drag, you know, just the dirty air of the cars could not get past him. And for two, I just think the Hondas were really quick, which we've seen before, haven't we? We've always seen that the Hondas go well in these, I mean, what are the 2,200 metres above sea level? So in thin air, the Hondas do tend to deliver better and get a little bit more performance out of it. So I think, had it been any other race weekend, both Ferraris would have been ahead of Gasly. As for it was Mexico. Cracking qualifying by Pierre, kept him ahead. And yeah, both Ferraris, absolutely fantastic effort. Charles Leclerc actually let Sainz through after a little bit of shenanigans, and this is where I get a little bit harsh maybe. He was trying to let, or wasn't trying to let Sainz through, was he? He got the order to let Sainz through, and it didn't happen for about 3 or 4 laps, and then by that point the gap that was 9 seconds on Gasly became 12 when Sainz eventually got past. So the lost time there, Sainz was obviously unable to then catch Gasly. I think he only got within about 7 seconds of him. So you imagine, take another 3 off that. You know, we could have well been in a fight there, but it didn't happen. And then they re-swapped back, so Charles finishes 5th. So yeah, Charles Leclerc, I think he drove a cracking race. The qualifying wasn't the best. He was down in 8th, but more than made up for it at turn 1, keeping himself out of trouble. And then was 5th place, was where he stayed throughout the most of it. Tried team orders a little bit too late. I think when he got that call, he should have just done it straight away. Maybe Sainz wouldn't have got Gasly, but we'll never know. And yeah, in the end, they swapped back, and here he is. So it's going to be 9 points to Charles for that one. Just literally, if it had just obeyed the team orders a little bit sooner, because they weren't in a fight with anyone else at that point. They were pretty much on their own. I think Sainz maybe could have got on the back of Gasly. I wouldn't have expected him to overtake him, to be fair, but I'd just like to have seen him try. So yeah, 9 points to Charles. And then Sainz's teammate, short and sweet once again for Carlos Sainz. It will be 9 points to him as well. Out-qualified Charles in qualifying, and then in the race was behind his teammate throughout the entire race. Ended up stopping 13 laps later than Leclerc, and still came out directly behind him. After all that time that Leclerc had fresher tyres, you'd have expected the gap to be so much bigger, but no, Sainz just literally went, yeah, I'm here again. And it's like, shit, where have you come from? And then they were behind each other. Then that's what prompted Ferrari to try and make the team call to let Sainz have a go at Gasly, because obviously he had so much fresher tyres compared to Charles, but didn't work out for one reason or another. And yeah, 9 points to Carlos Sainz. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel. What a cracking drive by Vettel this weekend. Unbelievable stuff. Here he is, P7. This one was all strategy. It really was all strategy, because the Bottas and Ricardo battle put pay to some drivers that were running round in the points, because they pitted early, got stuck behind that battle and could not get around it. So yeah, Vettel and the Aston Martin team saw what was going on with those cars not being able to make progress through the field once they got up to Ricardo and Bottas, and they stayed out for a lot longer to gain the pit stop over them. So yeah, fantastic effort by Vettel. I believe he was one that had engine penalties as well, if I remember rightly, but I can't quite remember because there were that many of them. But I do believe he had penalties. But either way, still a good effort in qualifying. And yeah, he gets fully deserving of 9 points. 9 points to Vettel. That was a cracking drive once again. Some solid points for Aston Martin. Not enough, admittedly. I'd like to see more from Aston Martin. Well, I think we all would have liked to have seen a lot more from Aston Martin this year entirely, to be honest. But yeah, cracking effort by Vettel. Solid points. 9 points on the crawl room. And then it's Kimi Räikkönen in the bloody points again. Kimi. Well done, Kimi. Kimi, a man after midnight. Well, what can I say for Kimi? Drove a stunning race. Again, strategic call. He stayed out. He followed Vettel and stayed out there for a lot longer than the other cars that pitted before him. And that worked out into Alfa Romeo's benefit for Räikkönen. But we'll get to Giovinazzi in a minute, because it didn't work for him, did it? But yeah, nonetheless, Räikkönen P8, stunning effort, kept the likes of Alonso at bay as well. So drove a really good race for Kimi. Yeah, once again, an okay qualifying by Räikkönen, just pipping ahead of his teammate. Got into Q2, didn't he? Just. And then, yeah, managed to stay ahead of his teammate. And then all the problems ahead boosted him up to 10th. Initially, didn't get a good start and dropped back behind Giovinazzi. But then the strategy call put him back up there. So, yeah, well done to Räikkönen for that. And it's going to be 9 points on the board to him as well. That was a stunning drive by Räikkönen. Happy to see him score 4 more points. Could be the last time we see him score points. I hope it isn't, but you know, with Alfa Romeo these days, they don't know what they're doing. They can't tell their ass from their elbow. So yeah, well done, Kimi. 9 points on the crawl room. 4 points in the championship. Fantastic. And then we come to Fernando Alonso. An okay race weekend by Alonso standards. Qualifying was not great at all, was he? He was out in Q1, and then Ocon, that was taking penalties, got through into Q2, so that was a bit dismal. All the penalties and everything put him 12th, 13th, somewhere, I can't remember. And then in the end, he picked up a couple of points. So yeah, the Alpine did not look quick this weekend, especially in qualifying. And then in the race, here he is, just picking up a couple more points, doing Alonso things. He had a good battle with Russell, didn't he? He got through on Russell. To be honest, everyone got through on Russell. But yeah, some good battles that we did see from him, but was unable to get past the likes of Räikkönen and Vettel ahead. But nonetheless, a couple of points. Well done to him for that. And it's going to be 8 points on the crawl room to Fernando Alonso. And then we come to Lando Norris, picking up the final points paying position in P10, of course. So what could be said for Lando? Well, he did the best job he could, couldn't he? We knew he was starting at the back anyway, or near the back, depending on qualifying. And he drove well. He gave Ricardo a brilliant tow both times in the qualifying session, of course, sacrificed his Q3 efforts. to give Ricardo the toe, and it worked because Ricardo was up there qualifying in P5, was it? P6? P6, wasn't it? And obviously Norris, I think, ended up starting 17th. He made a lot of progress through the field. Again, one of these drivers that saw that strategy wasn't working out for cars behind as they pitted, got stuck behind the Ricardo Bottas train, so stayed out a lot longer. And he pitted, came out in 10th and stayed 10th. So yeah, he was running as high as 7th at one point. We'd have expected to see a lot better from him though, wouldn't we? Because he pitted a lot later than the other cars ahead. But again, once he got into their dirty air, nothing he could do. Nothing he could do at all. So yeah, had it been most normal races, he could have been making progress and we could have seen him up in P7. Wasn't to be this time around. The dirty air put paid to that no matter how fresh your tyres are. And yeah, picking up one final points paying position. Not to be sniffed at. It's going to be 8 points to him as well. I think that was a worthy effort, deserving of a good points paying position. It was only one, and yes, I would have liked to have seen more, but judging by how bad the circuit has been for overtaking, he made 7 places that race. So yeah, fair play to him for that. So yeah, 8 points to Lando. A good drive, a really good drive. And then just outside the points, it's Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian stallion. Once again, oh, Giovinazzi, I don't know what more you need to do now. That was frustrating. That was so frustrating. Okay, gifted in qualifying, you know, it wasn't a brilliant effort. He tapped the wall as well, didn't he? So not great there. But then in the race, he starts 11th, keeps himself out of trouble, was up to 6th briefly. On the safety car restart, got dropped down to 7th and was running a solid 7th before Alfa Romeo pitted him. And then he came out behind Ricardo and Bottas and he could do nothing about those cars ahead. And he lost over 35 seconds. 35 seconds to the cars ahead of him that had not pitted. So then they got a free pit stop. And that's what kept Giovinazzi in 11th. And those guys stayed in the points. Oh, Gio. That was frustrating to watch that. That was really frustrating to watch because that was not his fault at all. I can't believe it went wrong again for him. I cannot believe it. But there we go. That's life. That's racing. I'm a little bit bummed about that because I think I know he's going now. I think it is going to be Joe in that car, especially now the Andretti deal's fallen through. But yeah, just frustrating. So yeah, it's going to be 8 points to Giovinazzi for that. I don't want to penalise him too hard. I've knocked him a point off there because he crashed in qualifying. But nonetheless, it was a good effort and he deserved points this weekend and he was shafted by the circuit and a little bit of a poor strategy to keep him behind Ricardo and Bottas there. But yeah, there we go. That's life, that's racing. Come on, move on now, Josh. I know you're sick and tired of Alfa Romeo binning it, but there we go. So yeah, 8 points to Giovinazzi. And what would have been a yet again thinking, oh, P11 for an Alfa Romeo, not bad. Could have been so much more. And next up we come to Daniel Ricciardo.
Lewis, come into the pits and stop whining like a little baby.
Oh, Daniel Ricciardo, what are you doing, you plum? It couldn't be anything other, could it? It couldn't have been anything other for Ricardo this weekend. Such a shame to do it as well. A good qualifying, helped by his teammate, I know. And then he just threw it all away in lap 1. I think Bottas was being a little bit overcautious. Once he knew Verstappen had got through, he was trying to let Hamilton through to mount an attack. So maybe came off the brakes a little bit earlier than everyone else. And then, he just got hit by in the back end of him though, didn't he? I can't excuse what Ricardo did there. Just locked up, missed his braking point. Dush, straight into the back of Bottas, spun him round and took his wing off. Took his own wing off, I should say. And then pitted. They got stuck at the back there, and that was it. That was it. Out the points. Was never getting in the points from that moment on. Yeah, just a shame. Just a shame. I mean, he held off Bottas for a long time, didn't he? Which is fair enough, I guess. But when it's outside the points, it doesn't matter, does it? So, yeah, big shame for McLaren and a big shame for Ricardo there. He threw away some good points that McLaren really needed because Ferrari got some double point scoring positions there. And yeah, that P3 Constructors battle is spicy. So yeah, they could have done with him being up there. But not to worry, there you go. Palmer of the Week to Daniel Ricciardo. And next up is Esteban Ocon. And what can we say? Just narrowly missing out on a Palmer of the Week once again. But It's just circumstance. Must be so unlucky to be lucky to not get a Palmer in this championship. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. But what could be said? Had engine penalties, so we're starting at the back anyway. We know that. Managed to knock his teammate out of Q1. Not ideal, because Alonso didn't have penalties, but there we go. And then in the race, he just got tangled up in the Bottas spin, didn't he? Was it Tsunoda or was it Mick that came over on him? Which then meant that he was in a sandwich, so he got hit by... he hit Tsunoda after Mick hits him, and that took both those cars out. And somehow Ocon was able to keep going. But I think he had damage, which is why he had a lacklustre performance from then on. Because you're not telling me two cars that have ripped the suspension off over your front wheels, you're not telling me you didn't have some sort of damage. So, yeah, for Ocon, once again, his engine penalties dropping him down the field save him. And that turn one collision, which meant that he stayed in the race, but I think he was hobbled, saves him once again. It's not going to be a stunning score, however. It's going to be one solitary point. But Ocon has been saved once again from a Palmer of the Week. Very, very lucky, this man. Very lucky. I can't believe he's only had one all season. But yeah, once again, his race somehow falls into his hands that he has a poor race, but not bad enough for me to give him a Palmer. So he needs to count his chickens on that one, really, because I think there's one coming soon, but not this weekend. So yeah, just 1 point to Esteban Ocon. And then we come to Lance Stroll.
I'm on the radio now, no one ever listens to it no more.
Lance, what could be said for Lance? That was pathetic, wasn't it? He crashed in qualifying heavily. Oh, and then in the race, he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. I noticed he was stuck behind Latifi for a lot longer than he should have been. I know dirty air and everything, and I get that, but it was a Williams that was really struggling this weekend, and he struggled to get past it for quite a while. So, yeah, Stroll did nothing. I did enjoy his overambitious radio message, though, from his race engineer when he finally got past Russell after about 94 laps. And they went, right, that's great, mate, that's really good. Now let's go and get Ocon. Ocon's 22 seconds up the road. I'm like, fuck's sake. So yeah, you know, one of those things. Lance just had a disastrous weekend and he deserves Palmer fully. Crashed in qualifying, was pathetic in the race, made no headway at all. But yeah, that little bit of team radio did cheer me up, but it's not going to save him from a Palmer. So yeah, there we go, Palmer of the Week 2. Lance Stroll. And then we come to Valtteri Bottas, disqualified on the cruel room anyway, but what could be said for his race weekend? What a tale of two fortunes. A fantastic, phenomenal pole position lap time by Bottas to hold off from his teammate and two charging Red Bulls. And then in the race, off the line, Max got the pair of him. I think Bottas was deep down yielding to let Hamilton try and have a go at Max, which I don't blame him for. You know, that's probably the team that they discussed anyway. We're getting to the latter stages of the season. Of course, Bottas has to play the wingman role, just like Perez has to do for Max. It's how it is. It's how it is now. And I just think he was on the brakes a little bit earlier to try and allow Hamilton to go around. If it had been a little bit more aggressive, maybe that slight touch from Ricardo wouldn't have happened. But it did, and it wasn't Bottas's fault. And then in the race, it wasn't getting points from there anyway. Struggled to get past Ricardo, which really compounded the fact he wasn't getting points. And then he had to do 2 stops to get the soft tyres on to nick the fastest lap point away from Max Verstappen. So that was lucky that he ended up getting the fastest lap point on the last lap, because the first time didn't work out, did it? So yeah, one of those things, one of those weekends by Bottas' standards. The luck just wasn't on his side at the start of the race, and then that was that. So yeah, big disappointment. Disqualified on the cruel room anyway, but I don't blame him for any part of this weekend. He did what he could in qualifying. In the race, just came undone. And then we come to George Russell. George Russell, watch out for them points. Well, he didn't get any of the points this weekend, did he, unfortunately? What a shame. What a shame, really. But George didn't have the pace. He had penalties anyway. Started 16th after qualifying 13th. But the pace of that Williams wasn't great, was it? It was up to 9th at one stage, but as soon as any car came near him, it was again what we saw earlier in the season with the Williams, that it's just no good in combat, it struggles, and the thin air really didn't play to the Williams' advantage this weekend. So, big shame, bit of a bottle job weekend by Williams' standards. They've been really good lately, but this weekend was just one to forget. So yeah, there we go. George Russell's going to be getting 4 points on the cruel room this weekend. Bit of a shame to score him so lowly, but the car wasn't really working too well. George had a quiet weekend considering what he's been doing in recent races. And yeah, I do put that down to the car, but at the end of the day, car and driver combo just didn't come together. So yeah, 4 points to George. And behind George was, of course, Nicholas Latifi, disqualified on the cruel room anyway, but once again, a lacklustre performance, absolutely dire. Was about 13, 14 seconds behind the next car. And then it was even more, I think. And then it was just pathetic, wasn't it? So yeah, disqualified on the cruel room anyway. But yeah, a very, very... If I think George had a bad weekend, then Latifi had a disaster because he was not good at all. So yeah, there we go. Latifi disqualified anyway. Poor weekend by Williams. And then we come to the last of the finishers, which is Nikita Mazepin. Now, as you know, we don't award him points on this cruel room championship due to his antics on and off the track. The allegations that have been made against him, the words that he uses, and his general attitude. So Dan Mushy Gaming just has his own fun with him on the cruel room scoreboard at the end, so look out for that at the end of the video, and you'll be able to see what fun he's had with him. And then we come to the two DNFs. Mick Schumacher, 5 points to him. Could do nothing there. He was just trying to avoid Bottas. Ocon was there already getting into a tangle with Tsunoda, and then boing, rip the rear suspension off. Out of it, unfortunately. So yeah, 5 points to Mick Schumacher. And as mentioned, Yuki Tsunoda, I don't blame him for what happened in qualifying. I do not blame him at all. He got well out of the way, which is what anyone could ask for. Had it been any other circuit that wasn't so dusty offline, Perez probably wouldn't even noticed it was there. But it was the dust that distracted Perez, not Tsunoda himself, in all honesty. And then that distracted Perez. Then Verstappen saw 2 cars off, was expecting yellows, backed off a little bit, and then that was that. So I don't blame Tsunoda. I'm just going to say now, he did everything he could, Tsunoda, in that qualifying to give Gasly the best possible position in qualifying, giving him 2 solid toes down the straight, backing out just before turn 1, and he did stunning. He did a cracking job at doing that. So fair play, Tsunoda, for that. Your weekend will ruined by the engine penalties anyway. But fair play Tsunoda for giving Gasly the toe down the straight that ultimately put Gasly in 5th and the ability to finish P4 in the race. So yeah, has to be commended for that. But sadly, it is just 5 points to Tsunoda for this weekend. So there you go, guys. That was the runners and riders of the cruel room. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? As always, the cruel room leaderboard is on the screen now. And my, it is hotting up at the top. Realistically, I think there's 5-6 drivers that can still win this with 4 races to go. It is getting close though, isn't it? Getting very, very close. And look at the gaps now appearing from like P8, P9 downwards. And it is all to do with the Palmers. If you get a Palmer, it's a no score that weekend. And there are the gaps that are emerging. So yeah, look at Charles though. Charles Leclerc, had he not had those Palmers for being a bit of an idiot, he could have really been in contention. But there you go, such is life. So as always, thanks a lot to Dan Mushy Gaming for providing me with this cruel room scoreboard. Without him, this series will be more pointless than it already is. And of course, a massive thanks to Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Jolie and Palmer skits that you all know and love. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you next week for the Brazilian Grand Prix Cruel Room. Cannot wait for that. Brazil's one of my favourites. I'm so glad we're going back. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you all next week. Much love!